Today's session. We are so glad that you all are here with us. I'm Dr. Kelly Irwin. I am the president-elect for TxDLA this year, as well as the professional development co-chair. And so we're excited to always be able to share these free webinars with you. Dr. Rhonda Blackburn is my partner in crime. She has gone back to teaching in the classroom, so she is actually not able to join us today, but she's here in spirit by all means. As I mentioned, this is the TxDLA Bite-Sized Learning webinars. We do host these on a monthly basis. On the TxDLA website is where you can find more information under the Learn area. You will see all upcoming webinars that we have planned, as well as the links and information to see the past recordings. I will let you all know we are in the process of putting together our schedule and plan for 2026. So watch the website and socials, etc., and we'll be sharing out the information and the plans for the webinars coming up for 2026. Today, however, we have Kee Jones with us, and we are talking about tech, teaching, and triggers. So really looking at managing mental health in the digital learning spaces. Give you a heads up, please mark your calendars. We have our 2026 conference, Riding the Wave of Innovation. That is scheduled for the in-person version, March 23rd through 26th in Galveston. And then we'll do our virtual version April 14th and 15th. There's information on the txdla.org website about the conference, about being a vendor sponsor partner if you're interested, as well as how to register for the sessions. We do use Zoom. Most of you are familiar with this. We do record our sessions. Chat is always open and available for conversation along the way. We do keep you on mute as we go through the session, just so that there isn't any background noise. But Kee and I were talking at the beginning, so there may be times that she asked you to come off mute and participate in the conversation. And now, without further ado, I'm excited to introduce you all to Kee Jones. And Kee, I will pass it over to you to do your full introduction and to get started for us.
Sure. Let's get started, everyone. I'm going to share my screen and let's pray we don't have any technical difficulties. Can everyone see my screen thus far?
Yes, you are good to go.
All right, let's get started. And as Kelly said, my name is Kee Jones. Welcome, everyone. I am so glad to be here with everyone on today. So, as I was telling Kelly when we were on the call early before everyone came in the room, I know that this is a webinar, but I want to kind of like not talk at you guys on today. I want to talk to you. So I know it's Wednesday, we're halfway through the work week, and somebody may have had a terrible week already. It may have just went downhill already, and we only halfway through the week, so that's okay. So just kind of relax. If you had your lunch already, eat your lunch and feel free to ask any questions in the chat that you need to ask. So today, we're not just talking about technology or tools, we're talking about the humans, which are us, behind the screen. So this session is called Tech, Teaching, and Triggers because I wanted to name the reality that our digital environments can both support and stress our nervous systems. So my intention is that we leave this space here on today with language tools and, just a little bit more compassion for ourselves and the individuals that we are serving. All right, let's talk a little bit about myself, me, Kee Jones. Let's talk about who I am and why this work actually matters so deeply to me. I spent the bulk of my career in healthcare, where I spent decades watching how stress, systems, and support impact the body and mind. In education, I see the emotional weight educators carry while they show up for students every single day. In tech, I see how quickly we innovate without always considering the emotional cost that it can cause. So, reset is actually my way of weaving all of those beautiful worlds together. My heart is for people who give so much of themselves in service to others. So, here I am at the intersection of healthcare, education, technology, and mental health. And don't just let me just talk, 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 rant and rant, guys. If you have any questions, Kelly will be monitoring the chat, so please ask any questions that you need to ask. But let's kind of talk about why this conversation even matters today. For one, rapid digital transformation. Digital learning has fundamentally transformed when, where, and how we teach, how we learn, often without even having the adequate preparation time. Also, we tend to have an increased emotional load, and that's that swift shift from virtual and hybrid models that has drastically increased emotional and cognitive load for both educators and students. Also, rising burnout. Wait, let me eliminate that. That's in my way. Hold on. Okay, rising burnout rates. Many educators report higher levels of stress, fatigue, and burnout, while students are actually experiencing more anxiety and disengagement. So let's kind of talk about how digital learning has changed over the years, and it's still changing the landscape of education almost overnight. Classes have moved online, support has moved online, and expectations of the educators have multiplied. So many educators and staff did what they always do. What we do, guys, we adapt. That's just us. We adapt. We held it all together, and of course, we made it work. But that shift came with a cost we do not always name out loud. We tend to kind of keep it hidden. So more people are feeling exhausted, overwhelmed, and very, very emotionally stretched. So today is all about saying and knowing that you're not imagining it is actually real. It's very, very real. So mental health in digital spaces is often treated as an afterthought instead of a core design element. It's time to change that approach and prioritize emotional well-being from the start. I'm gonna pause for a second if anybody have any questions or comments that they would like to address at the time. I can't see the chat, so Kelly, is there
I-
anything going on in the chat?
I'll keep it open. I don't see anything in the chat just yet.
Okay,
I
great.
was trying to type something in the chat. I could probably read it if you don't mind.
Okay.
I was saying that I think burnout from your previous slide showing
Do
up.
you need me to go back, Karen? Is that you
Okay,
speaking?
my people can see. I think burnout is showing up because people are trying to learn all these new technologies that are coming out
At
and coming
once.
up so
Mm-hmm.
quick, right? And because of that, the need to feel that I need to jump to become somebody awesome in this space, or to
Mm-hmm.
do I need to learn this to stay on top of the curve. And being in education for many, many years as not only an adjunct professor, but as a um, director, consultant, guidance counselor, and all that, I still work with some students, and I totally understand. Not just students, even myself, right? We
Right.
all wanna stay on top of everything. We want to learn, and that is causing this quote unquote burnout that you talked about. And burnout comes from just not being able to align with what's going on. It's not that you are, like you're flat out just falling out. It's just that some of the stresses that you're putting on yourself is causing you to feel that, which causes you to head to quote unquote burnout, if that makes sense.
It does. It makes a whole lot of sense. And I think a lot of times burnout comes when I know everyone has heard that phrase. We always want to chase all the shiny things. Let's talk about that for a second. If anybody wants to add to that, are you guilty of chasing the shiny things?
Oh yeah, I did a whole LinkedIn post about that. Just feeling, not stopping to understand what I'm feeling, and
Right.
then just instead of dealing with my feelings, I decided to treat what I was feeling with something. And that's a big no-no when you're dealing with stress, right? You need to stop, as I say, you need to stop and you need to pause and find out what
Yes.
you're feeling, because sometimes your feeling has nothing to do with what it is you're going after. And that's what causes the burnout.
Right. And not only wanting to just chase all the shiny things, just want to do what the next person is doing. You can't just try and mock what somebody else is doing. Just model yourself, stay in your own lane, and everyone has gifts. So I
You
say
know,
use your own gifts.
one thing that I thought of as the two of you were talking is especially when Karen was talking about trying to stay up with all this new technology and the tools and
Yes.
things like that
Mm-hmm.
is the perception, right? Do
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
people in our workplace, in our personal lives, expect us to actually be on top of all of these tools, or is that something that we have put on ourselves that we think people are expecting us to be on top of all of this?
In all honesty, I think it's a 50-50. I think that we are a little bit harder on ourselves than we should be because we want to do sometimes again, what everyone else is doing, and then you just never know who's looking up to us. Maybe our boss want us to learn all of those tools. Our kids are probably looking up to us. So I think it's a 50-50 thing. Anybody else?
At first, I was going to say it's an individual thing, but I agree with you because the company that I work for just recently had an all hands meeting. And at the end of the meeting, he was like, we need to be on more on technology. We need to learn more
Mm-hmm.
technology. And it's sort of, and he was like, well, we'll pay for some of this stuff, some of his stuff. Um, but the fact that he brought it up is trying to get people to point in a particular direction that they may not have been thinking about going in. But now you're telling me that you're needing me to get more involved in digital learning or machine learning or whatever it is, so that we, the organization, can keep up with the technology. So the pressures can come from both sides, on your own self
Yes,
as well as your organization slightly doing it as well. So I agree.
I, t- I agree with that as well. So let's talk a little bit about the emotional load of digital learning. Excuse me. You might be carrying right now. So we all are connected all the time. We connected to our emails, we're connected to learning platforms, we connected to group chats, school apps, you name it. It's on our devices. So you may be teaching to blank screens, wondering if anyone on the other side of that screen feels seen or if they even feel supported. You're solving tech issues. You're managing behaviors, you're holding emotions, and you're still trying to deliver strong content. So on top of that, the boundary between school or work and home, the lines are kind of blurred a bit. So it's hard to find that off switch. It's hard to kind of turn it off. So that is a lot for one's nervous system. And we all know how the old saying goes. Who's going to take care of you if you don't take care of you? So let's normalize putting ourselves first, even if it feels a bit selfish. So constant connectivity, again, like I said, we connected to these devices. The expectation of always that creates an always on culture that makes it difficult to fully disconnect and recharge. Managing that silent screen, delivering engaging content to cameras off students while trying to gauge understanding and engagement without that visual feedback. That could be very hard because you don't know if your students are even retaining the information on the other side of the screen or if they even paying attention, especially if they're quiet and they don't like to ask a lot of questions. So that's kind of hard. Triple tasking, balancing tech troubleshooting, content delivery, and emotional support simultaneously, often without any additional training or resources. Sometimes you're just thrown to the wolves and just have to figure that new app out. Blur boundaries. The physical separation between home and work or school has drastically disappeared, and it's making it harder for us to establish those healthy boundaries. Performance pressure again. Maintaining performance, presence, and positivity on screen while managing your own stress and emotional needs behind that. Now I'm gonna pause right here because I know somebody has something to say about what's on this screen. And whomever does, feel free to come off the mic or you can use the chat.
I was actually starting to type something in the chat. So one of the things I was thinking about is, and not just with students, but with adults too.
Yes.
At least the company that I work for, we're all virtual, right? And so when we have meetings or trainings or anything like that, encouraging people to be visible, meaning turn on your camera and be present while
Mm-hmm.
in the online environment. So whether it's
Mm-hmm.
adults or it's kids of any age, any learner really, what kind of tips do you have that we might be able to use to encourage people to be visible and be present?
For one, you have to always be on camera as well yourself. You have to always show
Mhm.
up because if you show up, they're gonna show up and always kind of like engage those, I say, side note conversations. Always check on your team and just always let them know that you're there for them. You don't have to just talk at meetings. Again, Make those side conversations before, during, after. Engage with them. Make them feel as though that they belong and they're not just behind the screen.
I,
Anybody else?
yes, hi, this is Caroline with Louisville ISD. And
Hi.
I wanted to mention competition. I think that's
Mm,
really driving a lot of this because now there's going to be movement of public schools in Texas to pursue the full-time online programs. And, part of it is just not necessarily trying to keep ahead for your sake or because someone in your district thinks this is a fun thing to try. But you literally are now competing with other districts
wow.
to make sure you have the best program out there. So
Mm,
we really are, and I'm very grateful for this session. We really are
thank you.
facing multiple issues. It's very layered.
Competition, that's a strong word because we may not look at it that way, but that hits it on the nail. We really can be at times competing with other districts, competing with other individuals. So thank you for that input because that is so totally true. Anybody else have
I
anything?
was gonna say, um, it depends on your environment. If you're speaking strictly about the classroom, then it depends on the kind of culture that was built, right? Since we got back in the off in the building after
Mm-hmm,
COVID.
mm-hmm.
Because I work in an environment where it is actually um, it's not required to be on camera, right? So
Oh.
yeah, it's not required. We don't have to. In fact, I don't even think my computer just quit working. My camera quit working because I don't turn it on. Um, Sometimes I'm trying to turn it on and I'm like, it's not even trying to work. So on their laptop. So the reason I'm making this point is because I sometimes have to give presentations, and I am like you. I want engagement. I want people to talk.
Yes,
I want to see if it's resonating on their faces, and but because of this environment that discourages face to face, for us to see each other, so you have to figure out other ways to engage and to encourage a conversation. So I
yes,
ask questions like you're doing within your presentation here. You bring up a picture, say, what does this picture say to you? Whatever it is, you got a little tricks of the trade. But I have a
yes.
friend, she's a college professor at Prairie View A&M University. She does ethics and law. And she struggles with they're back in the classroom, but everybody doesn't show up. And then the ones that want to come online never want to show
Mm-hmm.
their faces. And
Yes,
the school says everybody need if you're going to be online, you need to show your face. So it's how do you balance that culture? How do you balance it? How do you if you kind of set some ground rules like in the space I'm in we do we call them uh, um like a like a working agreement. We call them working agreements.
yes,
So this is the working agreement. This is a working agreement for the classroom, right? On
yes.
on Mondays and Wednesdays, we're on camera. The other days, no.
That's
So you could get dressed that day, right?
yeah,
If that there's no pressure to I gotta be dressed up, right? Like
right.
I work DC hours. I'm in Texas, so I'm starting at 5:30 Texas time. So yeah, I'm
Mm-hmm.
not that dressed that early sometimes, right? But
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, but then there are times when I'm like, hey, I get dressed to go onto the camera because I know I'm going on. So it just depends on the kind of thing you set up. You set the right ground rules, you set the culture, and then people will follow. If it depends on how you present it.
Right.
I just feel we set the tone. And
And I just think that no matter what, it's a fine line because some people are just so shy and it's hard to pull them out of their shell. And if you're making these demands, as a company, as a boss, where people must be on camera, then you're probably causing more harm to that individual and you may not even know it. So it's a sticky situation and it's also a fine line. We try all of these ways to get everyone to engage. And again, like I said, to pull individuals out of their shell and kind of go back to before we were doing all these virtual spaces. When we went person, we went to the job site 5 days a week. You had to go to the job site, and converting to virtual, that kind of changed things drastically. So it just depends. It's a sticky situation, a very fine line. Anybody else want to chime in on that? Anything in the chat, Kelly?
Just me. I posted a question to everybody. I was just kind of
Great. Okay,
curious.
great.
And my question was, which emotional load of digital learning feels most overwhelming right now, and how is it showing up in your daily work or classroom experience?
Great. Great. Okay, we can always double back to that.
I'm gonna say
Oh,
that
go ahead, Karen.
I want to say that uh, the need to feel that you need that you the need to feel that you need to be an expert. And again, it depends on how you, because if somebody is feeling I need to show something, I need to put something on the screen, and I need to be really great at it. And that's the expectation somehow they felt. I think if you are going to pose the question to somebody that I would like you to come on camera, but don't feel that you have to be perfect when you do so, or that what you're presenting has to be, the best. And again, you just change the tone, right? And I think let people feel comfortable. I mean, I don't know why all of a sudden people are fearful of showing themselves. It could be different. I think it's
Right.
different reasons. In my case, like I said, I get up at 5 o'clock and I'm like, yeah, I wash my face and then I come into my office down the hall. I work from home.
Mm-hmm.
But if I
Mm-hmm.
was going into the office, I would be dressed. And we were accustomed going into office for many, many years. So
Right.
don't act like it's a strange phenomenon going into an office and showing yourself to people. We just
Mm-hmm.
have to bring the conversation back to, hey, this is what we do. And maybe it could be 2 days a week, unless in my environment they say none at all, which is fine. Right. But if it's an environment that says this is what it is, this is what it is.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I totally agree
I
to
don't
that.
like, I don't like the word trigger. Key. I feel like we use trigger so improper and so many
So
times. It
mm,
just blurs what people really trying to say because they just throw the word trigger on everything. And yeah,
right, 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 right. That was great,
Kate,
Karen.
yeah, thank you for sharing that, Karen. You made me think of I'm trying to say this the right way, a situation where recently online, meeting with potential prospects or customer districts, I noticed a more casual attire from people, and I think, Karen, to your point, it is our environment. We work from home, so maybe we feel more casual, but yet these are
Mm-hmm.
still, if you're going to be on screen, this is still a professional environment. And how do you make sure that you are giving respect? I don't know if that's the right word, but respect to the person on the other side of the camera, with how you dress and how you kind of appear.
absolutely. So maybe send it in the email. Say, hey,
Yes.
this is for this meeting, we are in business attire because when I'm presenting, I'm not going to be in the t-shirt. I'm not gonna be in that or put have my robe on if it's like freezing in the house and I'm like still have my robe on. I'm not gonna come on camera like that. So why not set the ground rules? I mean, people,
That's right.
why is that a bad thing to do? Just set the expectations. I think if people know what to do, they'll do it. If they feel like you leave it up to them, then they'll do what they want, right? So
That's right.
it up to me and I come in my t-shirt, then don't scold me for that because you never told me. You said you're home, but I need you on camera, and I'm like, well, this is how I'm home on camera. But if you say, hey, this is a business meeting, this is an interview. How do we dress for an interview? Even when you're on camera, you put on the suit. So why not do it for your profession in your professional life as well, even though the location has nothing to do with how we present ourselves. Executive presence is something I speak about as well. And you could talk about that with your organization about your executive presence.
I love that executive presence. Yes. You wouldn't show up to a interview in your robe, would you? So I like that, Karen. I really do. Did anybody else have any feedback on Kelly's question?
There was one other one Key posted in there that Carolyn Parrish put in was the improper use of AI. That's another thing that's bringing kind of an emotional load in the digital learning space.
Oh, yeah. Mm. Yes, indeed. That's a topic of discussion for another day, but yes, the improper use. We all know AI has its pros and cons, and it depends on the individual that's using the tool. So, yes. If anybody else doesn't have any other input on this slide, I'll move on to the next one. Thank you to everyone for their input too. All right, now let's talk about how digital spaces trigger the nervous system. And I know like we use that word lightly, Karen. We all know how we feel about this word. It could be used, it could be oversaturated. But when I say tech teaching and triggers, I'm naming the fact that our digital tools that we use can really disturb very emotional responses. Overstimulation, there's too many tabs that we have open, too much noise, too much information. Understimulation, that's like too much silence, too very little feedback, not enough connection. Isolation is feeling like you're doing all of this alone. Performance pressure, that one we just spoke on that one is very heavy. Performance pressure can have us feeling like we have to be polished, we have to be perfect, and I think Karen already spoke on that. And also present, even on those days when we're struggling, we still are forced to show up. So just know that none of that makes you weak, it makes you human. Remember that. So again, overstimulation, those constant notifications, we having those multiple tabs open and sensory overload from competing digital demands create a state of heightened alert. Understimulation, that's the quiet times when they have those unresponsive screens and lack of feedback. And it sometimes leave us educators or presenters wondering if we're even connecting at all. Isolation, we're feeling disconnected from the students, our colleagues, and the broader learning community, despite all of us being here together online. But again, we don't know what's going on the other side of the screen. Performance pressure, being constantly on camera, that can sometimes create a feeling of being watched, being evaluated, and being judged in real time. And that's some other reasons why individuals have problems and they struggle with having their camera on. Cognitive overload, that's when you're juggling all those multiple platforms, content delivery, chat monitoring, and reading emotional cues all at once. Anybody have anything to say about your nervous system? Okay, I'll go on to our next slide. Overstimulation, too much, too fast. Again, as I just said, multiple platforms, constant alerts going off all the time, rapid context switching it forces our brains to work in ways that we weren't really even designed for. Virtual multitasking, teaching while monitoring the chat, grading, and providing tech support. That places unprecedented stress on our nervous systems. And I tell you what, I don't even think that we realize that. So over time, the sustained overstimulation that kind of leads to headaches. Again, what we don't realize and we just overlook it and keep going. We just take Tylenol, ibuprofen, or Excedrin. Oh, I have a headache. Not realizing some of the things that could be bringing this headache on. Headaches, irritability, profound fatigue, and difficulty just focusing. You don't find you find yourself at times just grabbing your temples and just keep going. And you're not realizing what can probably be causing all of this. So it creates a constant state of hypervigilance and tension, and that becomes the new norm. Now, is that normal? Mm-mm. No, it's not. Now I'm gonna stop right here. Would anybody like to reiterate on this or ask any questions?
I'm gonna make a comment about
Go
the
ahead.
stimulation, and I think Kelly put a question. When you notice screen fatigue, what signals you it's time to adjust your pace? In my case,
Yes.
like
Oh, yes.
sometimes I tell myself I'm gonna read a book on the plane, or I'm going to play a game or something, and then you just kind of just doing it mechanically. You're not really, you don't even know why you're doing it. You're just doing it because it's taking up time. Well, I'm on 4 hour flight, so it's not getting you there any faster. It's not taking any time. Maybe you might just want to rest your eyes. You may want to have a chat with the person, like a real conversation. I think
Yes.
we have to just we the thing is to recognize is this it's what I call I use a different word when I'm talking about something else, but it's like self um like adjusting yourself somehow. I'm trying to I'm trying I know when I'm talking about it in a different context I have a word,
It's
but
gonna come back to you.
yeah, in this context, it's like just readjusting your own self. If I'm sitting there and I'm just doing this and I'm just doing this, why am I doing it? Right? Just ask yourself,
Right.
why are you doing it? Is it be I go somewhere and I'm in the doctor's office and we're all sitting out and everybody's on their phone. It's like nobody knows what anybody is doing these days. And then I see people with their kids and their kids are doing something. They're not even seeing what their kids are doing
Mm-mm,
because they are
mm-mm.
on their phone. It's just about being present. We use this word all the time,
Right.
but it's really about trying to just be present. Not saying that I want to chat with everybody on the plane sometimes, sometimes I don't, but why not, right? You might sometimes you have a good conversation with somebody and you're like, wow, you learned something. So it's about just putting it down, saying I'm not going to pick it up because I'll probably be picking it up again. Why not just say I'm just gonna what about the people who driving and looking at the phone too? It's like
Right.
we need to have a point where we're just going to say, I'm not doing it for these 2 or 3 hours. And
Yeah, we just need to
that's
learn how to pause and tell
yeah.
our nervous system, I'm resting. I'm
And this
relaxing. I'm I'm
missing
I'm,
and
I'm
this thing
closing all these tabs.
right. And another thing is I this thing called the FOMO thing, the fear of missing out. People feel that if I'm not on Instagram and I'm not
Wait,
responding,
I'm sorry, Karen, what was the
oh,
word you used?
I used the term. It's called FOMO, FOMO, right? Fear of missing out.
Okay,
People feel
okay.
like if I'm not immediately responding to what somebody posted or immediately, you're missing something or you're gonna, and that's not the case. You just have to I catch myself sometimes like looking at something and I'm like, why am I looking at this? And then and I'm about to forward it to somebody because I think it's funny. And then I'm so like, no, maybe they may not think it's funny. And I probably don't want to bombard
Right.
their text with something. So I check my own self. So why don't
Oh,
people
I like
do
that.
that? Check yourself.
Yes, I love that. I love that. Check yourself. Anybody else? That's a good one, Karen. Thank you for sharing that.
Talking more than everybody else, sorry.
Oh no, you're fine. You're fine. I love that, I love the engagement like you stated earlier. And that helps me, also, and I'm in the position now where I'm the presenter, so I love to know that everyone behind the screen that I am providing good material. So that's great. I love that. I love the activity in the chat. I love the questions. I love it all because like I say, I'm in the position at the moment. Anybody else? So I said all that to say all those things that I name, all those, headaches, irritability, fatigue, none of those are character flaws. That's actually your nervous system screaming, yelling for relief, like telling you stop, pause, disengage, relax. Anybody else? Before I go on to the next slide? All right, let's talk a little bit about understimulation and that silent screen. So all our conversation is just kind of going and like we kind of getting ahead of ourselves. We already kind of touched base on this slide already, but I'll talk about it again. So under stimulation and that silent screen. On the other side, we have under stimulation, a silent screen, cameras off, no one talking, no one engaging, very little feedback. The presenter, they're pouring out, but you are not sure what's landing, what people are receiving on the other end. So that can easily turn into second guessing yourself. The presenter may second guess themselves. Am I even reaching them? Are they okay? Are they learning anything? So that invisible emotional labor is heavy. It's very, very heavy. So when we talk about mental health and digital learning, we have to include that silent emotional work too. So it goes when you can't read the room, the cameras are off. So we're unable to see those facial expressions or even body language. And that usually guides the teaching. Mutual isolation. Both educators and students can sometimes feel disconnected, and that also creates emotional exhaustion on both ends. Microphones muted. That minimal auditory feedback that creates kind of like a scary, eerie silence that contradicts the energy that the presenter is trying to put in. Self-doubt that constantly has you asking yourself, am I connecting? Are they understanding? And again, are they okay on the other side of that screen because I can't see? Um, is Karen, is your hand up?
It's my yes. I
Oh, go ahead. I
love
want to make sure
I
that
no,
wasn't
I love
old.
this. I love this slide because
Thank you.
you mentioned all the things presenters feel without saying it,
Yes.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Because especially when like I was in a conference, it was a virtual conference a few months back. And so we're all over all over the country, wherever we are. Nobody is able to even put on a camera with this platform that they had, right? Just a
Oh, wow.
presenter, and because they had it special, unless they specifically set it up. So you are presenting, and you don't even know if your content is reaching people, if they're not saying
That's
anything,
right.
they're not engaging.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like,
Mm-hmm.
of course, like how you're stopping and saying, I'm asking a question, how you're doing that. That's only probably thing you can do. Or put something else on the screen, maybe a poll or whatever, that sort of stuff. And hopefully they present, like I was at a presentation with my organization and they were talking about the 401k, and the presenters were from outside of our organization. They're with the finance company, and I noticed they kept asking these polls, and it was because they just wanted to make sure people were still listening, that people were
Yes.
understanding and had questions. And so
Mm-hmm.
it's weird that the silent screen causes you stress, like you said, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's you're doubting yourself. There's eerie silence. Um, how I don't know how else to combat that other than what we just said. Is there anything
Right.
else of an approach? Um, because I have to do a presentation this Friday, so I'm like, tell me, what what do we have?
And in all honesty, the only way we can tackle that again, like you said, and I didn't use that, so that's a good one. Putting up polls just to see, if your audience is still here, they're still awake, they didn't fall asleep on you. That's a way for the see if they're still there. If they're engaged. It tells you how many. Of course, it tells you how many people are answering the poll. Questions in the chat. And just keeping the conversation going. That's the only way we know, actually. And a poll will be great. Well, polls will be great. And I didn't even think of that one.
I just thought of something, and when we, the beginning of COVID in 2020. Of course, I've been working from home for many years, so
Mm-hmm.
it is not new to me working from my home office. But I was with this organization as a volunteer, and I was working as a business coach. And I would hold a session every Thursday. And one of the things that the co-presenter and I suggested that we do was when you have a question, like how you open up the mic, you open up the volume for the audio for me. We did that. We would open up the
Mm-hmm.
volume and we would tell people to come up and ask their question here. And because
Right, right.
it asked their question and other people could hear the question, which they may also have, it was able to cause some discussion, and it was the beginning of the Zoom era and all of this, but it was really good. I think things have changed now because people put their AI in here to take the notes, so they're not even
Mm,
here, and all that sort of stuff. But I think when people can come in and feel comfortable about asking questions, and the presenter is open to letting them do that, that's one of the way you can do it, is to, just like you did, say, hey, come on, the screen, the volume is open, the audio
the
is
floor
open,
is
you can
open.
speak, the camera is on if you want to come on camera, and we did that. and that used to help with engagement. So maybe that's the only other thing we can do other than the polls and the questions and stuff like that.
And I'm glad you touched base on that because I was recently in a meeting. I don't know if that was last week or the beginning of this week when we were talking about all the note takers coming in. And what actually happened in that organization, what I'm in, is we no longer allow note takers. If you're not in there physically with your note taker is not even allowed in the room.
I agree.
Yes. So I'm glad you touched base on that. And everybody's situation is different, and people chiming in from all over, and some on their lunch and some are still even working at the time. So if you can't come off mic, or if you can't come, have your camera on, just engage in the chat, and that's totally fine because everyone's situation is different. I've been in meetings where I couldn't come off the camera or I couldn't come off the mic, but I wanted to either be there to support or either be there to learn. So at that point, that's when I knew what my role was. I stayed active in the chat.
Yeah. I think this AI thing is getting well. Oh, we're just gonna send the note taker and you don't
Yeah,
show up. So no.
I'm that's one that we just actually nipped in the butt. The note takers are no longer allowed in the room if you're not present with your note taker.
Yeah, that's it. That's
I
it.
I know we said a lot, everyone. We're sorry. But does anyone else want to chime in on this? And I can't see the chat, so I'm sure Kelly would tell me if something is in the chat.
I'll tell you if anything pops in, I promise.
Thank you, dear. Okay, we're gonna move on. I hope everybody gathered what they needed from overstimulation and understimulation. All right, next. Oh, all right. Let's talk about some of those signs of digital mental strain in educators and in students. For us educators and leaders, the strain it show up in various ways, of course. And on a webinar that I did, I don't know if that was last week or this week when we were talking about burnout, but I don't want to jump the gun when how it doesn't show up in students, but I'm stick to educators, okay? So I don't want to jump too fast. So again, as educators, it shows up in various ways. We might feel dreaded before we even log on. Even even if we still love teaching, you might notice where you're snapping quicker, you're feeling numb, or finding it hard to care about things that you actually used to care about, things that you used to have so much energy, like the Energizer Bunny about. You might even feel guilty for being tired because you're like, I have to show up. I have to do this. I don't have room to be tired. I can't be tired. That's a huge mistake, just for the record. And you feel guilty about that because you know that other people they may have it worse, so they may need you. But I need you to hear this clearly, loud and clear on today. Exhaustion is not a moral failing. It is feedback from your body and your mind that guess what? You're tired. You're tired. So let's talk about it in students. Students, they are also carrying a lot. Their plates are very much fuller than what our plates were in our time. I know I'm not that old, but things have changed very, very drastically. My youngest, he is 21, and I can see like the big difference from when I was in school to them now. So they are carrying a lot as well. So, but guess what? Disengagement looks very, very different on them. It looks like resistance from the outside, but there's many times it's really their nervous system also, just like us. They're human just like us. It's their nervous system shutting down from overwhelm. And the students, they may just stop turning on their cameras altogether. They are hearts of a different color. They very different from us. They'll just shut the camera off. And regardless of how we feel about it. And they may even start responding. Or they may even start turning in incomplete work. So some may become more frustrated or more quieter than others. But what we must do that with our job is when we see these behaviors, it's extremely important for us to pause and ask what this might be a signal of. So instead of only asking what is wrong with them, and I'm gonna stop because someone may want to say something themselves as an educator or something they may have seen recently in their students.
So I'm gonna chime in for a second, Key. Michelle commented exactly. Feeling the need to multitask kind of makes it impossible to give 100% to any one thing anymore. Just like Karen said,
Yes.
is you have this fear of missing out, and you're wanting to learn, and you're wanting to show support, and.
You just want to be all of the above. And we can't. And that is so hard for us to get across our brains. We cannot do everything. We cannot show up for everybody. Yes, mentally we want to, but physically and health wise, we should not. We can't. We can't. We have to learn how to say no. And if you don't want to just directly say like flat out no, just say I'll get to that later, or can I get to that later? There's ways around it, but don't just give up all your time, and don't just be the one to want to say yes to everything, because you're doing yourself more harm than good. And do not be afraid to say I can't do it, or better yet, if you're to the point where you just have to flat out say I'm not doing it, you're not doing it, and don't do it. Karen?
I was with my friend who is the college professor. She
Mm-hmm.
That's one of her challenges with her students, that
Mm-hmm.
when they're in the 1 day a week or 2 days a week, they're doing allowed to do online.
Mm-hmm.
It's so funny. She has to go to the classroom. Her organization, the university, says you have to come in school. So she's driving
Mm-hmm.
out to school to go up there, but the students, they they don't have to. And then when they and then when they do come to class, quote unquote, they're not engaged because they're at home,
Mm.
and she can tell that they're not engaged, right? They're not coming at
Right.
they're not, they're not engaging in the conversation. And
Oh wow.
she complains about this all the time. And I'm like, girl, I think it's time, right? Maybe you might need to be doing something else.
Or
But
setting boundaries.
yeah, well,
That's what.
she tries, and so she'll say things like she makes it part of the grade, but some of them, they don't care about these, they don't care about those strengths.
Right, right.
Um,
That's
so
kind of what I
you
said
know,
earlier.
yeah,
Some of the
students are
kids
different.
today,
Yeah, they're
they
different.
different. They different. Their hearts of a different color. Anybody else? Okay, I'll move on to our
Maybe somebody
next
else.
screen.
Caroline is up. Hand is up.
Oh, I'm sorry. I can't see it, so y'all have to excuse me.
Oh, that's fine. Something you said that was really important when you said, may not be your exact words, but what is wrong with students when they're acting irritable? And I had a student that kept asking me to make her videos of the instructions, but she didn't have any sort of documentation, and I wasn't aware that there was a need for that. And of course, the instructions are written out. But she kept
Right.
asking, and I just, guided her to, go over the instructions, or we could have a tutoring session. And she responded to me, "What kind of teacher are you?" And I just went to lunch and sat in the park for a little bit and thought about that. Thought, I've never heard a young person say that to me. I thought, where has she heard that? Like that was an unusual thing for a student to say. So I came back to school and looked her up on the student information. So
Mm-hmm.
she was homeless. And I thought, boy, is her life hard. Yes,
Yes.
make her videos. I'm going to do whatever
Yes.
I can to reach out to that student.
Bless your heart.
Oh,
Yes.
well, I'll tell you, yes, learning moment, because it struck me as unusual, but thank you for mentioning that. Yeah, sometimes you do have to dig, and yet you do have to have that
Mm-hmm.
boundary where if I was making videos for every student that didn't understand an instruction, I'd never sleep. So
Right.
it's a tough line, but I do think that we do have a responsibility to dig a little sometimes.
Yeah, because they having problems just like us. Just like us. Okay, I'll go on to our next screen. Let's talk about my reset method for digital wellness. Okay, here's a little framework that I use, and I'm gonna start with the R, which is regulate the nervous system. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. All right, in this part right here, my framework, this is where my reset method comes in. And trust me, reset is not about perfection. It's about taking those small shifts that create more room to breathe. You regulate your nervous system and you establish boundaries, like I said earlier. Simplify what does not need to be complicated. Don't overthink things. Don't overthink and don't overdo. And always find ways where you can engage and you feel more human and less mechanical. Train yourself for balance, not just endurance. These are not extra tasks to add to your plate. Okay? There are ways of doing that you probably already do with more care and intention for yourself and others. So let's start with the R, where we regulate our nervous system. That's why you build in those micro moments of calm and you ground yourself throughout the day. So regulation is where we begin before we change our nervous system. We start with our body. We take 60 seconds to breathe deeply and to look away from those screens, okay? To unclench those jaws. It's not wasted time, but it's nervous system maintenance. You can invite your students or maybe even your teams into it with you. And it's simple. You just tell everyone, let's all take a minute to breathe and reset, where we can shift some of that extra energy of space more than a perfectly designed slide deck ever could. Now let's talk about the E. That's where you're going to establish boundaries. You're going to create those clear limits around time, access, and expectations. Boundaries, guys, is one of the most powerful forms of self-respect in the digital world. They may look like choosing a time of day when you stop checking messages, even if the platform is still buzzing. It might look like including breaks in those long sessions, or simply just give yourself permission to turn that camera off briefly to reset your eyes. You know, you've been staring at a screen, so you might want to just reset your eyes. When you model boundaries, you are quietly teaching others that humanity matters too. Let's talk about the S, where we simplify and we reduce unnecessary complexity in tools, platforms, and instructions. So we're simply simplifying and engaging differently, or it's pretty much just about reducing unnecessary pressure. Do you really need three different platforms for one lesson? Like we really need to ask ourselves that sometimes. Can we streamline instructions so students feel less lost? You know, narrow it down a bit. Can we invite interaction through the chat, or like Karen said multiple times, through polls, you know, instead of only verbal responses? Sometimes individuals cannot come off the camera. So you may have some quieter students, you know, let's find other ways where they can also engage. Can you let go of some of that pressure to be perfectly polished and instead just kind of lean forward, lean into being present, honest, and real? Those shifts, that creates breathing room. I'm sorry. Now let's talk about the T, train for balance. And that's where you normalize those breaks, recovery, and sustainable pace. And that's part of your productivity. So training for balance is an ongoing practice. Ongoing. You're going to do that all the time. It's deciding that you will not only push through until you crash. It is acknowledging that you have limits and that honoring those limits is a strength and it's not a weakness. So don't ever think that. It is encouraging your team or your students to do the same. Balance might look like building micro breaks into your day, planning recovery time after intense seasons, and also checking in with yourself regularly. Where am I right now? Physically, mentally, emotionally. I want to start right here because that's a question that we really need to ask ourselves. Where am I right now? Physically, mentally, and emotionally. And I'm going to pause for a second. If anyone wants to answer that question, even if you don't want to come off mic, answer it in the chat.
So,
Where am I at right now, physically, mentally, and emotionally?
one of the things that I'll call out, Karen posted in the chat that she tries to start with meditation, in the mornings to start her day, which is great. And then I
Absolutely.
commented, the company that I work for has provided the Calm app to everybody in the
Mm,
company free of charge. And there are all sorts of neat ways to reset within the Calm app.
mm, mm.
That's
That's pretty cool.
awesome. Yeah, I know years ago when I lived in California, I used to go to a group and we used to do meditation, and I just like I couldn't get it. At least I thought I couldn't get it. But now I think, because of resetting my mind and um, trying to be more intentional and about taking care of my own mental health, because I see so many instances where when we don't do that, what happens,
Hmm.
right? When we don't do it, because nobody can do it for you. People can tell you, yeah, but the company will push you as much as they can. And
Yes.
you end up, like me 2 years ago in the ER because my blood pressure was like ridiculous. So I'm like, no, I'm stopping and I'm doing like he said, this reset method, establish boundaries. I don't let people could say whatever. It's like, okay, um, I simplify what I need to do, and yeah, and this I love this one about training for balance, and so training
Hmm.
for balance and normalizing the breaks, and stopping when you need to stop. Like I used to work and work and work, and I'm working
Yes.
10-hour, 12-hour days, just and because I'm at home. Nobody's telling me you want to go for a cup of coffee downstairs to the store. You want to go for lunch. No, I'll go downstairs and come right back up, and I'm eating right here.
Hmm.
And then I was like, you need to stop. You need to go downstairs. You need to sit downstairs, eat your half an hour, or whatever it is, because if you just keep watching the screen and keep going and going, you're not helping yourself. And you will do this
That's right.
point where you end up, with the burnout and doing all the other things because you're not even recognizing that that's what it is. So, I love this framework.
Thank you.
Definitely going to do more of it. But I really started, and I noticed with the meditation I'm doing, and it's it's really teaching me about not only just the breathing and relaxing myself, but also about just taking it's 7 minutes, and I'm like, can't you just take 7 minutes for yourself? That's how
Right.
I have to tell myself. I'm like, can't you just stop and take 7 minutes just for you? And when I realized out of all the minutes in a day, 7 minutes is really small for me to stop and be mindful about calming myself, calming my body, resetting, to use your word. And yeah, so
Right.
great, thanks.
All right. And last but not least, let's talk about reclaiming humanity in digital learning. Your humanity does not disappear just because you are behind a screen. Digital learning should not cost you your peace nor your identity. Remember that you are allowed to protect your energy, your time, and your mental space without feeling guilty nor without an apology. Do not apologize. Small shifts matter. Intentional steps toward regulation and boundaries can lead to profound change over time. And certainly reclaim your wholeness. So, the reset movement is about reclaiming your wholeness in spaces that demand so much from you. So, as we close here today, I want to speak directly to humanity, to everyone, all of us here. You are not a machine. You are not just a title, a role, nor a box on the screen. You are a whole person with a nervous system, with a story and a capacity that deserves protection. Digital learning is here to stay, but so is your right to peace. Remember that. So is your right to peace, presence, and balance. Reset is an ongoing invitation to step back, to breathe, and reclaim your space in a world that often asks you to disappear behind the work. Thank you to everyone for showing up on today. Thank you, and thank you, students, too. And remember that they have a nervous system as well, and your teams, and most of all, thank yourself. And remember to reclaim your time and do not be afraid to say no. Protect yourself in these digital spaces. Think about your students behind those screens when you're giving these presentations. Think about your team, but most importantly, think about yourself as well.
Thank you, Key, so
You're
very
very
much.
welcome.
This
You're
was
so very welcome.
this was fantastic. I think the thing that I will say is
You're welcome.
a lot of what you said isn't new, right? I mean, this is stuff
Right.
we know and we should be doing, but we
That's right.
don't. And so your
Mm-mm.
reset framework is such an amazing reminder to us to
Yes.
do that, to
Thank you.
truly just stop and reset. So thank you so much for that. As I mentioned earlier, everyone, we do have monthly bite-sized learning webinars, just like the one you experienced with
Thank
Kee
you.
Jones today. We will be updating our calendar for 2026 soon, so keep an eye on the website. Um, we would not be able to do all of these free webinars, plus the conference, plus all of the other amazing things that TxDLA does without the partnership of some many amazing vendors. So thank you to all of them. It
Yes.
makes a difference and it allows us to bring great resources. Quick reminder, save the dates for the 2026 conference, March 23rd through 26th in Galveston, and again virtually April 14th through 15th. If you are not a member of TxDLA, you are by all means always invited to join our free bite-sized learning webinars. But there's a lot more to the
Yes.
organization. And though Texas may be in our name, we are not just Texas constituents. So we have folks from all over the country. So enjoy joining and taking advantage of the resources that we have. It is $50 for a year-long membership.
That's a
By all
fact.
means, visit the txdla.org website and follow us on socials for more information, not just about the bite-sized learning webinars, but about all of the resources that we have available. Thank
Yes.
you all so much for joining us. Again, Keith, thank you. Much
You're
appreciated.
welcome.
And
I want to say big
yeah.
hugs to Tara. Tara said, "Thank you so much, Key. This feels like a digital hug.
Oh,
Digital
good.
hugs to everyone. It's
I
it's the
love that.
midweek, and we don't know who has had it rough thus far this week. The week may have came in so swift. So everyone, big hugs to you all. And remember, do not be afraid to say no.
That is
Protect
a
your peace.
great way to wrap this up. And I love that. I am guilty of it and I am taking
Yes.
that away. That is my, I'm not going to say New Year's resolution, but that is my commitment to myself to remember to take a break, to step away, and to reset.
Maybe put it as a daily affirmation and just
I
say it
like
every
it.
day.
I
Yes,
like
just
it.
say it every day.
I like it. I'm going to do it.
Every day. Thanks so much,
Yes.
everyone.
Thank you all so much. Have a great afternoon and a good wrap up to the end of 2025. Thanks, everyone.
Yes.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thanks.